In 1911, while Nucky was sheriff, Woodrow Wilson, then governor of New Jersey, decided that Atlantic County needed a house cleaning. He assigned a special Supreme Court justice to hear cases and ordered his Attorney General, Edmund Wilson, to institute a grand jury investigation. As a result, then Republican boss Lewis Coonley, Nucky Johnson, and many others were indicted on various charges. Coonley was convicted on a charge of illegally receiving county contracts and was sentenced to prison. Johnson, however, was indicted only for illegally removing registration books and official election returns from the county clerk's office, and on that charge, he was acquitted. When the governor's reform drive ended, it had merely succeeded in removing Coonley from power and had established Nucky Johnson in his place. The acquittal cemented Nucky's bulletproof reputation, and in 1914, the Atlantic County Board of Freeholders elected Nucky to the position of county treasurer, and for 30 years he retained this position. It was well known that the county treasurer's office was merely used as Johnson's political headquarters. In 1916, Johnson expanded his political activities beyond the confines of his county. He managed the campaign of Walter E. Edge for governor, and when Edge was elected, Johnson was rewarded by being named as Clerk of the State Supreme Court for a 5-year term. The period from 1920 to 1930 saw Johnson at the peak of his career as a political leader. During that time, not only was he the absolute boss of Atlantic City and Atlantic County, but he was one of a select handful of Republican leaders that controlled the destinies of his party in the state. The basis of Johnson's political power was due to the fact that he dominated Atlantic City. The population of 66,000 was nearly half comprised of African Americans, and Johnson and his Republican organization always completely controlled the black vote. The strength of his organization lay in the activities of his Negro precinct captains on the north side of Atlantic City. Further, Atlantic City, which was principally a seashore resort catering to millions of visitors each year, had maintained a liberal policy of providing all kinds of entertainment for its patrons. This necessarily included nightclubs, drinking, gambling, and other entertainment of a similar nature.
Army of lawbreakers has been recruited and financed on a colossal scale that many of our best citizens piqued at what they regarded as an infringement of their private rights have openly and unabashed disregarded the 18th Amendment, that as an inevitable result, respect for all law has been greatly lessened, that crime has increased to an unprecedented degree, I have slowly and reluctantly come to believe.
Repeal means surrender to the criminal and corrupt who now defy and break the law. The high road to national greatness and enduring prosperity does not run through the brewery, the distillery, and the saloon. observance and enforcement, not repeal, must be America's program for the future.
These activities, of course, brought in many underworld characters. And when necessity required it, Johnson could always count on a large number of gamblers, prostitutes, and other unsavory types to cast sufficient illegal votes for his candidates to supplement the Negro vote. In addition, Johnson, through his patronage powers, gained control of a sizable block of votes made up of all county and city employees, their families, and friends. Of course, to maintain a political organization of this kind required the spending of enormous sums of money, much more than could be obtained through voluntary contributions or through dues from Republican club members. Johnson compelled donations from the city and county employees to help maintain the organization, but he mainly oiled the gears of his machine with funds obtained through graft in various rackets, namely gambling, bootlegging, and prostitution. During the Prohibition era, Atlantic City was overrun with speakeasies, and Johnson's illegal income from bootleggers and speakeasy proprietors was enormous. Also, during this period, the graft on road contracts, building permits, and construction work of all kinds was very substantial. In 1935, although Nucky had many mistresses, he lived openly with an actress named Florence Osbeck. They resided in a Spanish-style stucco bungalow near the Boardwalk in Atlantic City, and also maintained a suite at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. The rentals for these two establishments ran about $5,000 a year, or $84,000 in today's standards. In addition, mainly for Flossie's convenience, he maintained a New York apartment at 128 Central Park South, for which he paid $2,200 a year. Clothing bills for himself and Miss Osbeck averaged about $3,000 a year. Nucky bought nothing but tailor-made suits at $150 a suit, and his food bills reached about $3,000 a year, for his taste ran to lobsters, caviar, and steaks. Nucky's liquor bill was approximately $4,000 a year. Champagne and 18-year-old brandy were the only beverages he considered worthwhile. He also maintained 4 16-cylinder Cadillac cars, which he kept in operation constantly for Miss Osbeck, himself, and for the entertainment of his friends and constituents. If Nucky's largesse made him somewhat of a folk hero, it was widely known that anyone, regardless of social standing, could come to Johnson for help in time of need, be it for employment or simply an extra pound of coal in the winter. It also made him a target for federal investigation. Johnson was investigated numerous times for bootlegging and racketeering charges, but investigators often ran into a host of difficulties, a testament to Nucky's well-oiled criminal and political machine, as one report documents.
The agents found that save for a few contractors and proprietors of large nightclubs and gambling casinos who had been previously examined by revenue agents, practically none of the parties involved kept any books or records worthy of the name. It was impossible to determine their income with any degree of accuracy, and the agents were required to build up the tax liabilities from outside sources. Johnson's complete authority over a period of 30 years and his apparent immunity from prior investigations had convinced everybody in Atlantic City that he could take care of anything and everything. Throughout the investigations, the Treasury agents found the taxpayers with whom they were dealing maintaining silence to protect Johnson because they felt certain that Johnson would fix things up for them. This state of mind went even further. The corruption of Johnson's machine induced many of the individuals under investigation to make false statements to the agents, and, as will subsequently appear, even to commit perjury, intimidate witnesses, tamper with juries, and generally to obstruct justice in federal proceedings, just as they were accustomed to doing in the courts of New Jersey.
In the end, investigators were able to indict Nucky on tax evasion charges on the staggering sums Johnson collected from the owners and operators of illegal gambling parlors and brothels. The judge in the case remarked,
"The people can only act through leaders, and if our republic is to function and democracy is to be preserved, those who aspire to leadership in public life to lead the people around must and do assume certain responsibilities over and above that of the ordinary citizen. Certainly, one of those responsibilities, the highest and strongest, is to be exemplary in the matter of obeying the law, and as I see it, this defendant had a particular responsibility, as perhaps the leading citizen in public life in his community, in being an example to those whom he was leading. In that responsibility, he has not been exemplary in obeying the laws. On the other hand, the jury has found, and I think quite properly, that he had set them an example of cheating and defrauding the government, which is, to say the least, shocking."
in July of 1941, Nucky Johnson was convicted and sentenced to 10 years in federal prison and fined $20,000. State Senator Frank Hap Farley followed Johnson, maintaining his command from 1942 to 1972, wielding his power as a state senator. While Hap oversaw the empire that Nuck had created, his own power only stretched to include the political arena. As one columnist noted, Nucky's power was absolute. Later, tax evasion charges would once again be used to bring in one of the most notorious gangsters, an early colleague and confidant of Nucky Johnson, Al Capone.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to help us produce more compelling historical content like this, please like, comment below, and share this video with fellow history buffs. And of course, be sure to subscribe to help keep history happening.